Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Susan Lopresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. This is the podcast where we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to a woman's life, her health, and all aspects of navigating the midlife landscape. I'm your host, Susan Lopresti, and today I have a guest with me. Her name is Melissa Lafsky Saleh. And Melissa is really and truly a force of nature. She's a former lawyer and journalist who has turned serial entrepreneur, masterful storyteller, and advocate for survivors of trauma. With a career spanning technology, media, and brand strategy, she has shaped the narrative of Fortune 500 giants and startups alike, helping them carve out their place in a fast-moving world. As the co-founder of FairPlayAI, she works to promote equity and reduce bias in automated decision-making. Melissa is a sought-after speaker on personal transformation, resilience, and leadership, bringing raw honesty and hard-earned wisdom to every stage that she steps onto. Having endured an ultimate trauma, the loss of a child, she speaks from a place of deep experience, turning pain into purpose and showing others how to navigate trauma with courage and hope. Her insights on the power of personal growth, the grit of women entrepreneurs, and the nuanced experiences of women leaders make her voice both necessary and unforgettable. In her personal life, Melissa's multiracial interfaith marriage and family adds another layer to her perspective. She offers a refreshing take on what it means to bridge different worlds and how to navigate this force facing societal prejudices. Whether through her work or her personal journey, she challenges audiences to embrace change and turn adversity into strength and lead with unshakable authenticity. And without further ado, welcome to my podcast. Melissa, thank you so much for being here today. I am so honored to have you on my podcast, and I can't wait for my listeners to hear your full story. So, how did you transition from the career that you had into what it is that you're doing now?
Well, Susan, thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. And you ask a great question. I mean, transitions, I didn't go into the workforce thinking transitions and starting new careers would be my specialty, but it's going to become my specialty. I'm someone that I was not set up to really commit to a career in my early 20s. I've spent my 20s and 30s figuring out what it is that I'm meant to be doing. I started off as a lawyer. I have no regrets. I'm glad I went to law school. I learned some really valuable skills and information. But then I got to New York and I got a job as an associate at a white shoe law firm. And on my first week on the job, I said, I have made the greatest mistake of my life. I cannot do this for 30 years. What have I done? I will die, quite literally, if I try to stay in this as a career and pretend that it's right for me. So my pathway out was through the skill that is honestly the skill that I feel that I am actually here to do, which is storytelling. Storytelling is my zone of genius. I believe very much that every human being has their own individual zone of genius, this thing that you can do better than most other people that doesn't even feel like work, that just kind of comes to you naturally. Like you on your spare time will do this. And that's your zone of genius. Well, for me, it's storytelling. And it was the time in the early 2000s when digital media was just entering the scene, and sites like the Drudge Report and the Huffington Post were starting to take over for traditional media outlets. And so it was a time where anybody could really become a writing presence or storytelling presence on the internet. And for me, I knew how to write, I knew how to brand. So I created a blog and WordPress, and the blog became extremely popular and extremely widely read. And that gave me a sort of, I built a bridge to transition into a media and journalism career, where I worked for years and then found myself kind of pigeonholed into this role of, oh yeah, the girl who likes emerging technology and can also do traditional media. So she'll figure out how to take legacy media brands and bring them into the digital age. And that was just not, legacy media brands are still figuring that out. So
Yes.
it wasn't a realistic sort of expectation. But then I also discovered another love, which was emerging technology and startups. I absolutely love creating businesses, putting new products into the world, and serving needs to move humanity forward. And an absolutely pivotal part of that is storytelling. From the founder story to the why does this company need to exist? What is the first product? What is our company? What does it stand for? What is the mission, vision, values? Who are our customers? How do we speak to them? Who are our investors? How do we speak to them? Who's our team? All of this is storytelling. You have to make it all up when you are creating. It is. You're astonished at how much is made up in these, huge companies. It was all made up when they first started, and it's still all made up now. So this is all storytelling. When you really start digging into it, our society, humanity in general, kind of runs on stories. And we're seeing that honestly kind of in our face in this modern political time, where these stories that have been kind of the foundations of this country are being questioned.
Yes.
Is the story still relevant? Do we still believe in this story? So when you look at the world through that lens, which I do, everything is a story, it gives you a lot of personal power because you get to write your story. You get to create, all right, right now, the main character, Susan, is in this job or in this career and she's not that happy. Well, okay, she's our hero, our heroine. So how do we get her to a new situation? You get to be the author of your own story.
Right. So what is it that you're currently doing?
Well, through a very interesting series of events, I faced a massive tragic loss when I was 35, so about 10 years ago. I wanted a husband, I wanted a family, I wanted children, and I knew I wanted those things as much as I wanted my career. In fact, more. I prioritized those over my career. And I did get married, and I went through a very difficult fertility journey. And then I was pregnant. And I was running my own content strategy company at that time, where I was working with startups and larger companies on exactly what I just spoke about, creating new narratives to reach new types of customers or to accompany new products, that sort of thing, to build their brands. So I was a company owner and runner. I went into labor at about 9 months, almost 9 months pregnant, and I arrived at Mount Sinai Hospital on Friday, August 15th, 2014. And I learned that my daughter's heart had suddenly and inexplicably stopped, and there was nothing to be done. She had passed, and I had to then immediately continue labor and give birth, or I was told that my life could be in danger too. Suffice it to say that that event created a BC and an AD in my life. There is before that event, and then there is after. I thought I was a pretty good storyteller. I did not have that in my narrative at all. That was not an event that I ever thought. I mean, I hope no woman ever thinks that's going to happen to me. I certainly didn't. But it was a triple whammy. I lost many things that day. Among them, I learned just through what happened that day that my first marriage would end. It was just a matter of when. I also learned that day something I had never known, which was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, very powerful, brilliant woman out of University of Chicago, and she dedicated her life to government and was one of the key players to create the Head Start program, which is now kind of being discussed heavily. My grandmother had gone to Georgetown Hospital to give birth to her first child and had had the exact same thing happen. She had lost.
Wow.
So this was generational trauma. My family had buried it. No one had ever mentioned it. The first time I learned about it was that day when I was in the hospital, having just lost my first.
Who
So
told you?
my mother.
Your mom.
So that day, there was no going back. There was only like, okay, I need to go from a storytelling perspective. I need to go back to the drawing board because there is a whole new story. None of this is going the way I thought it was. This world does not exist the way I thought that it did. And I can no longer live in the story that I used to live in because it's now completely obsolete.
I have I have another question. Why that day you knew that your marriage couldn't go forward? What happened there? What was
there
that
was
revelation?
I talk about it in my book that I'm still working on, to be honest. The story still goes. There was a betrayal that day that just made it clear
Oh,
we are not going to go through this together. We are not going to come out of this together on the other side. Everyone who goes through a loss like this, and there are many more than anyone wants to talk about because it gets so buried and it remains so taboo. Even in this modern society where things are supposedly not taboo, this was extremely taboo. No one wanted to talk about it. And in a marriage, that puts you in a, well, we're either really going to dig in and get through this together, or it's really going to be the beginning of the end. And for
and
us, that day
yeah,
was very clearly the beginning of the end.
I was about to say, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Mhm.
I do know that a lot of couples that lose a child, their marriage is not able to survive,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
which is very sad.
it's a very sad thing. Look, like I'm working on a book to talk about coming out of that trauma. Storytelling was huge, quite frankly. I kept having to create a new story in order to shut down my life in New York City eventually, leave New York, go completely into the unknown, become nobody at the age of 38 in a new city where nobody knew me. No, everything had gone to zero. My professional contacts, my network, most of my friendships, my professional reputation, I just
Wow.
was company down. I gave away most of my possessions on a Brooklyn stoop, and I just started over from scratch at the age of 38 in Charleston, South Carolina. And from there, I was able to nurture and heal my body and soul enough to be able to go back into the workforce. I get this call from some colleagues that I knew, and they had just signed a big contract with Facebook. This was 2016. Facebook at that time, seems ironic now, but at that time wanted to tell a kinder and gentler story about the powerful work that people were doing through Facebook, through social good, charitable giving, and also through Facebook groups. So they brought me on to help shape that narrative and tell that story on a wider scale. The amazing thing about that was that one of the big events that I worked on the launch of the Facebook Social Good Forum and then the Facebook Community Summit. Well, what are the biggest communities on Facebook? They're groups. What are some of the biggest groups on Facebook? Mothers groups and groups for women. So I was personally vetting and picking which groups and group leaders on Facebook would be attending this inaugural community summit with Mark Zuckerberg and et cetera. Well, I got talking to these women who were running some of the biggest groups on Facebook. What were the biggest issues in their groups? infertility, miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, birth trauma, and then a host of traumas after your baby comes, have lack of support postpartum, lack of paid maternity, mandatory paid maternity leave, having to go back to work too soon and leave your baby too early, lack of support in your marriage. I mean, it was just like all of the things I had faced at scale for, thousands upon thousands of women. And the culmination of that work that I was very proud of was Mark Zuckerberg himself and his wife had just suffered 3 miscarriages on their path to having their 3 daughters. Happens to billionaires too. This kind of loss is not just this kind of person or that kind of person. So Mark and the inaugural Facebook Community Summit got on stage with 3 women who run very large women's groups on Facebook, and they discussed miscarriage and they discussed pregnancy loss, and in front of 50 members of the press. And to me, and hopefully to other women who have been told, hold this in silence, the world doesn't want to hear about it. To me, that was deeply meaningful, because if we're not talking about this, it's like it doesn't exist. It's as if women's pain just doesn't exist, doesn't matter, and get over it and move on. Well, no. Right. That was my first child. That is my first child. So no, I will not do that. No, sorry.
No, that's a devastating thing. And a lot of people will sweep it under the rug and make believe like it never happened, or don't talk about it, or, tap dance around it.
Well, and it's not that they're bad people, but you don't have support for, you don't have a place to go put this. I mean, my 2, at that time, look, you go through something like this, and it wasn't just a few months. My life took another 1.5 years to fully hit rock bottom. I lost the next pregnancy after my daughter. My marriage was just spiraling downward. Things were very, very dark for me for a long time. And unfortunately, you lose a lot of friendships during that, because you learn a lot of people just they don't want to be part of that. They just don't, oh, she's on a downward spiral and her misery and blah, blah, blah. I did have my 2 closest friends since kindergarten who are like sisters, and they were absolutely incredible. And then I attended a stillbirth support group, other families in New York that had had these losses. And I met 2 women who are still incredible friends of mine who had had very similar losses. And with them, I could truly be myself. I could truly be this new incarnation of me who had just lost a baby at birth. It's a totally different woman than the woman from 5 days earlier, or from 6 months earlier. And we all went on to pick up ourselves and rebuild our lives. And we've all gone on to have 2 healthy children. And those 2 women are some of the most extraordinary people that I will ever be honored to know in this lifetime. I get compliments sometimes. Oh, you're very strong. And I say, thank you. And you should meet these 2 women. They are absolutely incredible. So your life completely changes, and your story has to completely change with it. And then you start to realize there's actual beauty here. I would never have met those women otherwise, but they are some of the most extraordinary people that I have ever known in this life. And the people that dropped off were arguably not meant for me. Term anyway. So, and I probably wasn't.
Do you notice that sometimes something really tragic like that happens and you can't make sense of it? There is no way to make sense of it, and your heart is broken. But out of something bad, there always seems to be something good that comes later on.
I mean, that is such a core, what you have just said, I think is such a crucial part of this world. I don't know if it's true of every bad thing. I don't.
But a lot of them.
But a lot of them it is. So many things that look horrible or that seem horrible, well, they were necessary, or whether or not it was necessary, they were a catalyst. They led to this other thing. And who knows if we would have gotten to the other thing had we not had that catalyst. I struggle with this a lot because I mean, I got myself in a lot of hot water over this topic in 2008, or maybe it was 2009, when Ted Kennedy passed away. And there was talk of his death on the left, and there was talk of his death on the right. And the narrative on the left was he was a genius, he was the Lion of the Senate, Ted Kennedy, American hero, full stop. And the narrative on the right was he was a murderer, he was evil, death to the Kennedys. And those were the two narratives. And I was like, I don't agree with either of those. There is actually a deeper narrative here. A woman died tragically, Mary Jo Kopechne, young woman, very smart, hardworking, talented. Did that woman deserve the tragic death? No, of course not. Absolutely not. Nowhere in this universe. Just like I didn't deserve to lose my first child didn't deserve what happened. None of this is about deserving, but it happens whether we want it to or not. And so I wrote a piece for the Huffington Post that, the kicker needed an editor. I'm not here to say that everything about it was perfect, but I was trying to get at this deeper level of conversation, which is Ted Kennedy was on a track of being a ne'er-do-well and a drunk who just assumed he would run for president because his brothers did. Then this horrific tragedy happened. And I'm not here to say whether he should have gone to jail or any of it. I don't know. All I know is the tragedy happened and he played a large part in it.
Mm-hmm.
It completely changed him. He turned into a different human being, and he ran for Senate because he knew he could never run for president. And as a senator, he created massive change in this country. He created the Americans with Disabilities Act. He created legislation that changed the lives of millions of people and generations of Americans. Would he have done any of that had he not been involved in this horrible tragedy? And if he didn't have to carry that for the rest of his life? I don't know. I kind of think no. I kind of think that may not have happened otherwise. Maybe it would have, but that's what I was trying to get at in this column. Needless to say, the column was not received very well by the left or the right, but I was trying to get at this. Sometimes you just gotta I could have used an editor on that one. Rush Limbaugh came after me, Bill O'Reilly. I was
Oh boy.
I really stepped in it on this one, but it tells me that I hit a nerve, that
Yes.
this is a deep topic that maybe we should all actually be looking at, especially in this time where we are so polarized and so many people say, oh, this just happened and it's horrible. And other people say, oh, this just happened and it's wonderful. Maybe it's both. I don't know. One of my favorite movies is Charlie Wilson's War. And it's with Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts, and Philip Seymour Hoffman plays a wonderful role in this movie. And he, at one point, they're talking about they took action in Afghanistan. Well, was the action good or bad? Did it cause more harm than it cured? And Philip Seymour Hoffman tells a story, the Zen master and the little boy. And there's a village and there's a Zen master and there's a little boy. And the little boy breaks his leg and everyone in the village says, that's so awful. And the Zen master says, we'll see. And then a war breaks out and all of the boys in the village are conscripted to go to war, but the little boy doesn't have to go because his leg is injured. And everyone says, that's so wonderful. And the Zen master says, we'll see. And it goes on like that.
Yeah.
There things happen. And as Shakespeare would say, nothing is good or bad, but saying makes it so. I mean, certain things happen and we're like, no, that's just bad. Like that's horrible. Separating children from their parents, death, tragedy, horror, abuse. Those are not, they're good things, but no, they're not.
No.
Many, many other things fall into is it good? Is it bad? We'll have to see. We'll see.
Right. But you came out on the other side, right? I mean,
I came out.
Yeah.
Different being than I was. You really do walk through the fire and it burns all your skin off. And then you come out and you're like, all right, here's me with completely new skin.
Yeah.
You become a totally different version of yourself. And that is trauma transcendence.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of what the book I'm writing is about, is how a trauma happens. You didn't ask for it. You didn't want it, but it happened. And I would say the vast majority of us in this lifetime will have at least something happen out of the blue that will just hit us like a bomb. And then, okay, what do you do? What do you do with this? I couldn't find a single person who had gone through a loss like this and then all the subsequent losses after and come out of it and been like, this happened to me and I am here to talk about it and I'm here to, be the lighthouse for anyone. I couldn't find anyone. I found public figures. Oprah had a stillborn child. Elon Musk's first child passed away, I believe, from SIDS. I think it was at 10 days old. Keanu Reeves had a stillborn. I mean, there are certainly public figures who have had these kinds of losses. I could not find from the annals of history, I could not find a woman's voice saying, this is how I actually came through it and
Yeah.
came out on the other side and created an amazing life.
Yeah.
So I said, I guess it's got to be me. I guess I have to be the one, because there are women today, a woman will arrive at the hospital in labor to give birth to a child, and instead will have to go through giving birth to death. It is such a horrific experience. If you
Yeah.
haven't had it, gone through it, I don't know how to describe it. Maybe that's a good thing, but it is such a soul crushing. I mean, the best analogy I can use is someone took, if my soul was a Coke bottle, someone took it and dropped it off of a fifth floor balcony. And what you see on the ground is what my soul looked like on August 16th. A woman today will go and have that experience. And I at least want there to be a cultural touchstone so that when it happens, because it is continuing to happen, we still don't know why it happens. Western medicine does not know why this happens. So I very much admire people who are working on prevention.
Mhm.
But for me, I take the view trauma happens. This is a trauma. There are many different other, and it happens, and it's very likely to happen to all of us. What do we do? How do we transcend it? Not just get through it and not just survive it, but transcend it.
I have heard that Black women experience stillborns more than any other race. And I don't know why that is. Have you heard that?
Yes, well, women of color traditionally get much worse medical outcomes. They get worse treatment. They just do. This has been scientifically proven. A Black woman is much more likely when she is in labor to have her pain levels ignored. She's much more likely to be told, oh, you're fine. It's not actually a problem. There are many, many reasons for this. And there have been studies, there is data, there is scientific research and documentation that women of color experience worse outcomes in pregnancy. Yes.
Is it because they are women of color or
I don't
oh
I don't believe that's true. I don't know for sure, but I don't
yeah.
true.
I
I
thought it
believe it's
was
because
something.
the rest of the world sees them as women of color and
Yeah.
then acts accordingly, according to internal biases and societal biases. You can trace it back to, are women of color receiving as good prenatal care? Do they have access to the top resources for prenatal care?
Right.
You really have to look at this as a 360 degree. There is no one reason for something like this.
Right.
I do talk about it in terms of water. I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller, and I love David Foster Wallace. He is a wonderful writer who sadly took his own life, but he has a very famous commencement address that he delivered at Kenyon University, and he opened with this story of three fish. There are two young fish swimming through the water, and an older fish swims by them, and he says, "Hey boys, how's the water?" And the one younger fish turns to the other younger fish and says, "What's water? We are swimming in water. Our society, our culture, our family beliefs, our race, class, gender beliefs, it makes up water. And we are all swimming in water every single day. The water of America, the water of New York, the water of all of it. And some of us are all of us, I would say, are in very dirty water. And the dirtier the water is, the more likely you are to do something like lose a pregnancy, because you've been swimming in dirty water, and the dirty water is everywhere. It's not just in one place.
Yeah.
Like once the water is dirty, that dirt spreads all over the place. I use that analogy because to me, that's one of the only ways to really describe this sort of jagged maze that you are put in on the path to bringing a baby into the world. because there are so many factors. There's your nutrition, there's your access to medical care. How much stress are you under? What kind of job are you working? How much support do you have from your community, your family? How much support do you have from a partner? How much support do you have from bosses in the workplace? Do you come from family? I mean, all of these things contribute to the
Yes.
outcome of a pregnancy. Do you have generational trauma? How much trauma did you go through as a child? They're now finding a woman's experience in bringing babies into the world, breastfeeding, all of it is very related to childhood trauma. So there are so many factors that go into your water. If your water is dirtier than other people's, yeah, it's going to be harder for you.
Mhm. Now, Melissa, you're remarried, right?
I am, yes.
So, do
I
you have
went back.
children? Did you go on
Yes.
to have children?
I remarried because I wanted partnership and I wanted a family. I worked so hard to transcend my trauma. I almost did a little too good of a job. We wound up having 2 babies in 2 years during the pandemic with no fertility assistance whatsoever. I had my daughters, my living daughters at 42 and 43. So
Beautiful.
I took on transition and trauma transcendence so much that I got a little more than I was bargaining for. I wound up with 2 under 2, which was a whole new set of challenges. I was like, look at
Yes.
me, I have conquered the world. I have, done the impossible and had these 2 babies. And then I was like, oh my God, I've climbed an Everest and now I'm at the bottom of another Everest. And this is 10 times bigger and 10 times harder. And I have no idea what to do. So that has been a whole new challenge. And we are a multi-ethnic couple. I am Jewish. My husband is Arab American. And, we have 2 daughters who represent what I believe is the best of both cultures. They're healthy, happy, thriving. And that is, to me, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's what trauma transcendence is
Yeah.
to be able to create the new generation that is not carrying. My daughters will not ever have a day like the one where I had to learn my grandmother had this
Yeah.
exact same loss and now I have it. My daughters will never have that experience. They'll have other challenges and they'll have other experiences in their lives, but it won't be that. And to me, that is like, I take absolutely tremendous pride in that. Whether the rest of society ever, I certainly didn't get paid for it, certainly did, whether society ever acknowledges it or not, a big part of trauma transcendence is learning how to be your own cheering squad and learning how to be your own like biggest proponent and advocate.
Right.
Because the rest of the world is not trauma informed right now. They're just not.
No.
I am not I take actions that are very different from other people's because I have had to go through such different experiences than other people. I actually relate pretty well to combat veterans. I've had combat veterans tell me, I go to support group and what you guys went through is harder. And I'm like, thank you. That is actually one of the greatest compliments that I could
Yeah.
receive. Somebody seeing me and acknowledging. I live in this world, but I'm not normal. And like nobody who goes through this is normal. We have had to do and see and be in situations the vast majority of the world has not. And yet we like look normal and we walk through and people say, oh yeah, you lost your first sip. Oh, that is so sad. Yeah. And then they just kind of go on.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, that was 10 years of my life. And I didn't know if I would survive. And a lot of other people didn't think I would survive. They wrote me off as done. She's done. She'll like go live in a home somewhere. It was that.
One piece of advice, or, for a woman who's listening to this podcast and they lost a child,
Oof.
like,
I
what do you
mean,
say?
every experience is different, and I honor every single experience. What I will say to anybody who is going through that is you are a hero and you are a warrior, and your pain matters and it is valid. And you get to do what you need for you. Do not let other people tell you what you should feel, what you should do. You are the hero here of this journey. And I see you and I honor you. And I would never presume to tell another woman what to do. She doesn't need that from me. But I think all of us could use a little bit of understanding and cheering squad. We are not weak. We are the strongest people in this society. To go through the pain that we have to go through and then get up the next day and go out in this world that's going to treat you the way it treats everybody else. That was one of the hardest things, was that the world doesn't go, oh, she needs some gentleness right now. She needs some kindness. Nope, world is just as unkind as ever. So
Are there support groups that are?
there are. It's very rough. I'm not going to lie. It's such a devastating experience that it can honestly, I want to be careful of what I say, but it can be hard to be around other people going through it because everyone is drowning.
Yes.
And when everyone's drowning,
I could see
the leaders of my support group, wonderful people, they were both people who had gone through stillbirths or infant loss. And they had gone through it 9 or 10 years earlier, and they had had healthy children. They were still wrecked. They were not, like, they were still incredibly sad. And they were not sort of guiding us to this, like, I went through this and it was, let me say this. I will never transcend the grief. This is not about transcending grief. The grief is the love, and that's my child. I love her. I mean, people talk about it and I ask them, do you have children? And they say, yes. And I say, well, do you love your child? Well, yes. Well, I love mine too. She's just not with us. So the grief I have to learn to live with. I'm Jewish, but every Christmas it hits me. I don't know why, it just does. And then on her birthday in August, I scattered her ashes in a very special place and I go and I visit with her. So I have had to sort of design a life that honors my grief and my pain. The pain gets less the more I sort of fill the life with meaning and purpose, where I feel that I am honoring her and keeping her alive by empowering others. The trauma is what I talk about transcending. The trauma of going through that experience so alone, so completely unprepared, not having real supportive resources in the aftermath, and then going through so many subsequent losses that I just had no control over. It was like dominoes just falling in my life. So the trauma is what I focus on transcending, not the love, not the grief. Those are, I cherish those. Those are parts of the human experience. And that's my daughter. And I will never seek to transcend my grief or my love for her.
No.
But for any woman going through this, I see you and you are not alone.
Melissa, what about when you were carrying your two daughters, when you were pregnant? I would imagine that you had a lot of fear.
Oh, that's a beautiful question that I don't get asked very much. And I appreciate you asking it. It was, I don't even know how to describe the fear. The pandemic was so hard for so many,
Yes.
but for me, it was beautiful because it shut the rest of the world down and it just gave me a little bit of like, nobody's showing up at my door. Nobody in the world, everybody in the world is at home locked up. I can be in my little space growing my next baby. Every single day was terrifying, never knowing, is something horrible going to happen today? Is something horrible going to happen at birth? Am I am I growing? Am I sort of sacrificing my body right now and falling in love with another child and growing another child only to have a loss with my new husband, who I deeply love, and like he's gonna have to go through that too. I mean, our families are gonna have to. It was horrific. It was horrific. All I can say is finding purpose and distraction in building a company with my husband. And in the pandemic, we had this beautiful apartment right on the marina here near the beach in Los Angeles, and just taking walks along the water and being in nature. And my husband's an incredible cook. He would cook these incredible meals every night. It's fresh paella, and then it's Nashville hot chicken. And that was enough. And then focusing on creating this company. My husband is the founder and CEO, and we worked together for the first couple of years. And that gave me enough to get through that time. But yes, it was terrifying every single day. And then the next pregnancy was terrifying too. Yeah, I don't get that question a lot, but
How
it
were
is.
your deliveries? Were they fairly normal deliveries?
Well, I approached, so I was in LA now, and it was a very different sort of medical community. And I interviewed OBs like Harvard interviews incoming freshmen. I was like, I want to see your office. I want to see, is your secretary looking happy? Is your office manager surly and grumpy? Or is she like, good energy? Like, how do you operate in your practice? Do you give me personal attention? In my first pregnancy, I never saw the same doctor twice. Half the time I didn't even see the doctor. There was no real communication with me. It was kind of a conveyor belt. And I found my way to this incredible OB who sat with me. I wasn't even pregnant, but I brought it was like a copy of the US tax code, my medical records. It was this thick. And I brought it to him and I slapped it down and I said, here, tell me what you think. And he was like, they did this wrong, they did that wrong, and here's what I think. And I was like, okay, I will go on this journey. I trust you. I will go on this journey with you. And he took excellent care of me. And he brought in colleagues who would monitor the pregnancy. And nobody can make you promises. Doctors cannot promise outcomes. But we formed a team and they cared. And I knew they had my back and they were going to do everything in their power to ensure a good outcome. And I obviously, nothing is for sure in this life, but at least I knew that I had a team that cared, that was going to do their best. And they did. And my birth experience with both children, everyone kind of knew, like, this is a big deal. Like, how's this going to go? They gave me, and it was the pandemic. So my husband wasn't able to come to most of the appointments, but he was able to be in the room during labor. They gave me this beautiful room, at Cedars Sinai Hospital with floor to ceiling views, windows of the Hollywood Hills. And I was up all night and I could see the sun rising over the Hollywood Hills. And it's a very lovely way to go through a birth experience. And I chose no epidural in that birth. I think I was kind of in that, again, I love to use analogies from movies. If you've seen Forrest Gump, and the scene in Forrest Gump where Lieutenant Dan climbs up, there's a hurricane and he's got the boat and he climbs up the mast of the hurricane and he's just yelling at God and he's going, you will not take this boat from me. That was me giving birth. Like, all right, bring it on. You will not take this baby from me. And I see now that it wasn't actually me fighting with God. It wasn't, but that was kind of my story at the time. Yeah. I went through the whole birth with no epidural. I'm not sure that was necessarily the best idea, but I did it. It's not like anybody gives you a medal at the end and says, good for you. But I did it.
You're a hero.
Yeah, and my daughter was healthy and perfect and beautiful. And so was my next daughter. And they are absolute marvels. And my life, I mean, whatever I do in this life, they are by far the most incredible thing that I've done. So, I probably could have made it easier on myself. I'm working on that.
Give me some final thoughts before we end.
Final thoughts. I think that we as humans are in a time of great transition and transformation. I think when you open up the paper in the morning or open up your iPhone and look at the news, like, we are in a time of great change and great transition. And it's very easy to build a position about everything. That's horrible. That's not, I agree with this. I don't agree with that. And that's fine. Every person here, I believe that every human being has the right to their own story and their own view of the world. I just think we are being called on to figure out what's our collective story. what do we all actually believe in for this country, for the future of this world, for humanity? Like, what is our collective story? What do we want it to be? How do we, what is a great America? What is a great life? What do we actually need as individuals and as a collective in order to live more fulfilling lives? I think those are the questions to be answering, not, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this person evil? Is this person good? Like, honestly, I'm those are important questions. I'm glad people are addressing them, but it's not where I'm called to go. There has to be a level on which all humans can relate to each other. Otherwise, we're just living in these sort of conflicting stories that you're good, you're evil, this is good, this is bad. There's got to be a deeper story and a deeper level. And that's why I'm out here, because I believe that somebody has to be talking about that.
When is your book coming out?
I gotta finish it. So I'm working on it. I'll let you know.
Okay. Melissa, thank you so much. Your
Thank you.
story it's tragic and it ends on a beautiful, beautiful note. It
Thank
really
you.
does. You came out on the other side. You're happily married. You have a strong marriage. You have two beautiful girls. And I wish you the best of luck and live happily ever after.
Thank you so much, Susan. The challenges continue. It's not like
Yes,
everything's.
right. The
I
challenges
don't want to make
go.
it sound like the story's over. There's plenty
No,
more coming.
yeah. You have a whole life with your daughter. How old are your daughters now?
4.5 and 3.
Yeah, you have a long way to go. You have school, high school,
Thank you.
college.
Yep.
It's a
The whole shebang.
journey. It's a journey. But I will tell you, I have one daughter, and I will say she's my greatest blessing. I adore her. We are best of friends. She's 32 now, and we've always been best
Wow.
friends from the
Wow.
minute she was born. And,
Wow.
and yeah, so it just keeps on getting better and better. And I know it
That's
will
amazing.
for you as well.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
sharing your story coming on. And I know it's painful, but I'm hoping that someone on here who's experienced what you went through could find a little bit of hope and encouragement to continue and go on. And there is life at the end as well. So
Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you
thank
for the
you.
work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.